many hurling rocks and bottles at the police or anyone else, some attacking the cars of people, white or Negro, who just passed by. 15 citizens injured, 19 officers hurt, none seriously, 31 arrested, 12 juveniles.
This is the Carl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show, and I'm Carl Gerber, a real workplace lawyer who happens to actually be an employment discrimination lawyer, and we're bringing you the second installment of a new piece of fiction called The Visitor, set in Los Angeles in 1965. It's about a family that decides to go away for the weekend in late August of 1965, and I think we know what was going on around August 11th, 1965 in Watts. Well, at any rate, the family's got 4 people, a husband, wife, a girl, maybe 11, maybe 12, and an older son, 16, 17-ish, who is some kind of a electronics nerd, and he's put together a contraption on a piece of board with 6 dry cell batteries powering it, and it acts like a radio transmitter so that everything in the Greenwoods home can be heard on this board. And they're in their car heading west on the Ventura Highway, and they've been listening to their maid who's at home, and there's somebody who's been buzzing a lot at the door and buzzing the gate, and they also have they have a white car phone in their Mercury station wagon, Mrs. Greenwood's, and they've been talking to Amelia on that and hearing about what's going on at home, and it's been some time. They left at about 5:30 from Hollywood Hills in Los Angeles, and now they're, as we left last week, they were in Camarillo, so it's got to be an hour and a half later because they stopped at a gas station in Agora. Now, everything you're hearing is historically accurate for Los Angeles. The music you're hearing is the actual music that was the top of the Billboard charts in 1965. We do use some language that is authentic for the ear, but would not be the way we would talk now, so apologies in order. Now, let's get back to the story with the Greenwoods. In their Mercury station wagon, very fancy car with the white car phone, and Mr. Greenwood's driving, and he's there, and it's night, and there's been thunder and lightning and all that. And he says to his family, "Where is the man now? Ask her." Mrs. Greenwood shivered while dutifully repeating Amelia's words, even though they were heard on the contraption.
Well, he's still at the door. Well, she says he's still at the door.
Call the police. Tell her to call the police.
Well, she says she'll have to hang up if she calls the police.
Now remember that Amelia is on the phone at the Greenwoods house, which is sort of an antebellum mansion in Laurel Canyon that might have been built by, Southern Confederate soldier. Mr. Greenwood says to his wife, "Could she ask this man what he wants?" Time passed. Shelley, that's the younger girl, looked out the window at the vast fields on each side of the three-way. For miles the fields were barren. She looked around for metal in the fields. She was relieved when she saw an idle tractor.
Do you think the lightning will strike there? What if it doesn't and it comes to this car? There isn't any other metal around here.
Yes, they're still in the car, and, they had the radio.
Look, I'd like very much to get along with you.
Well, I was starting to wonder about it.
What do you know about Casey Kasem?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Ain't he a railroad engineer or something?
He's one of KRLA's most popular disc jockeys.
Well, I ain't never heard of no Casey Caboose.
Not Caboose, it's Casey Jones.
Well, you said...
I mean Kasem.
Kasem who?
Kasem, that's who.
Dangest name I ever heard.
I don't like no boss radio.
Los Angeles. It's 8:32 in Los Angeles. That's Gloria. That's the #1 song in Los Angeles. You know it's true because it's #1 on the Boss 30 from 93 KHJ Gloria.
A few minutes later, they passed Bud's Wagon Wheel Motel. There was a good chance he would join them the next day if the rain let up. He was the best salesman ever, but Mrs. Greenwood didn't need much encouragement for the yacht to be driven up the coast from San Pedro. Mr. Greenwood realized San Pedro was a port, no place for a pleasure boat. But them and all of them now live in San Pedro, and that's why Mrs. Greenwood's family fled San Pedro decades earlier. Those were her reasons for agreeing the boat could move north. She'd never been to Oxnard before. They always met Bud at a steakhouse in Los Angeles, sometimes along Sunset Boulevard, once in Burbank, sometimes even on Ventura Boulevard. Well, anyways, that's where the boys from Bonanza might show up for a dinner with Bud. The conversation between Mrs. Greenwood and Amelia continued. The signal on David's contraption whistled, and then it just turned to static. It was unknown whether Amelia turned the porch light on. What's she saying on the telephone?
She's saying it's dark.
Tell us something we don't know.
He's dark.
Who is dark? Can she just ask this man what he wants? The Mercury got off the Ventura Highway and headed south towards the new small boat harbor in Oxnard. The eucalyptus trees swayed in the wind and everything howled.
Oh, maybe we should turn around. Go back home.
Is the man still there? He was still there, and he might have been closer to 7 feet than 6 feet, but it was dark, and he was dark, so nothing could be certain. The Mercury parked in the empty parking lot of the small boat harbor. Mr. Greenwood grabbed his captain's hat, David unseated during the ride, and ran out towards a big boat in the small boat harbor. She looked like a steamship, but she had a big iron inboard sail. I'm calling the police! He ran up the outdoor stairs to the ship's helm. Benches large enough to seat a jury panel surrounded the helm. He thought about using the ship's radio, but opted for the telephone. Some time later, he went down into the galley of the ship. Mrs. Greenwood stood. Her car phone was plugged in where she normally plugged in the blender she used to make David's cranberry juice. Mr. Greenwood slid the open door to the dockside level of the yacht. Tell her the police said she has to call from Los Angeles. For some reason, the Oxnard police can't contact the Los Angeles police.
The man's asking her personal questions.
Mr. Greenwood was certain the two were not becoming friends, not his wife and Amelia, or the gigantic man and Amelia. What does she? Well, what does he want?
He asked her what her relationship is to you.
Mr. Greenwood dropped his left eye and raised his note. He's a process server. Someone's trying to serve me. After the galley, there was another helm. The helm was made of walnut. It was so well polished, Mr. Greenwood didn't want to dirty it, taking the boat out. Without touching the wheel, Mr. Greenwood used the telephone at the inside helm. 10 minutes later, he announced he could not get through to the Los Angeles Police Department. Mrs. Greenwood was still on the car phone, running up a bill larger than the two-helm steamship that ran on diesel. David's contraption worked once again. He plugged it into the hi-fi speakers along the galley seating. There was silence for a moment when Amelia transferred the phone in the upstairs library and locked the door to the hallway. During that transfer, there was a loud crashing noise.
What was that?
David pinpointed the noise as coming from the kitchen. Amelia's voice came in through the hi-fi speakers in the yacht.
In kitchen.
What just happened?
Miss Beverly, something crashed in kitchen.
Oh, he's in the house now.
Oh my, this is the Carl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show, and we're talking about racial perceptions in 1965 Los Angeles amongst people that, quite frankly, are a little bit less than all white. And, you know, this is the way it was back then. It was still a racially segregated period of time in Los Angeles when 81% of the black population lived in South Los Angeles. 90% of the San Fernando Valley was white. And Los Angeles was not yet an international city with people from all different types of countries. And what was going on at that time? Well, I think we know what that was. It was the Watts Riot. Yes, the Watts Riot were going on in August of 1965. I think that they started around August 11th, and our story takes place maybe a week later when the police are still overwhelmed. Okay, so I want to now tell you that I am a real workplace lawyer. If you have a real workplace case, you need to sue your employer for racial issues or sexual harassment, any form of employment discrimination, I can be reached at 877-525-0700. That's 877-525-0700. Once again, 877-525-0700. We're going to be resuming our normal schedule most likely in September on Los Angeles radio, okay? But during these times, it's a little bit hard to do anything because it is the coronavirus. So this is what we're doing in the meantime. I'm writing short stories. You're hearing one of them now. It's been submitted to some literary journals. I would expect it to go somewhere, but you're the first people to be hearing this broadcast.
Here I am, here I'll stay.
Go ahead! Go ahead on!
Feed 'em right with a premium gasoline that lets any car deliver all the power built into it. Gulf 4 Power No Nox.
Since 1993, the Employment Lawyers Group has been a results-oriented law firm whose goal is to get the client what they deserve. They've represented thousands of California employees who've lost their jobs, been sexually harassed, subjected to employment discrimination, or were owed wages on an individualized or group basis, such as a class action. They have a high rate of success. There are few situations involving employment law that they have not confronted. At the forefront of employee rights, they're often the first employee law firm to confront a new legal issue. For an experienced employment lawyer, call 877-525-0700. That's 877-525-0700. They have call takers standing by. Online, read more about the firm at employeelawca.com. They have offices throughout Southern California. Make your work problem theirs to solve.
Here I am, here I'll stay.
Watts area, 52 Chevrolet, white in color, containing 4 male Negroes with a sawed-off shotgun. Reserved in the looted store area. 4 male Negroes.
This is the Carl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show. I'm a real workplace discrimination lawyer, and I don't know if you just heard that little plug that we did, and I think that the police said something that they shouldn't have said on the police radio back there in the Watts Riot, and you know, that is why there was a riot, and that is why today we still have issues with police brutality. So come this summer, we had some problems. There were some dark days for the Employment Lawyers Group where I had to go into the office on a Monday night because the looters were coming on Ventura Boulevard. I stayed in the office till 10. I removed artwork, and everyone around me was boarded up. Well, there were a lot of businesses that were spray painting signs that said Black Lives Matters, and I think it was kind of hollow, but over here at the Employment Lawyers Group, and me being a writer, I think I made no less than about 60 or 70 signs that talked about the accomplishments of the minorities who've been in California, from the railroad to the fact that the Tonga Indians were here before us, and they're all over the front of the building and they're in the back, and I would see people taking pictures of it when I watered the plants, being one of the only one of two people to be in the building, me at the front at the top and other person at the bottom at the back, and they took pictures and a lot of people commented on it, so they liked the signs. And you know what, everyone's taken their fake boarded up Black Lives Matter signs down, but mine are still up on my office, and if I can't see out the window, that's okay for me, because I think that I'm here for a reason. I've been representing employees in employment discrimination for, well, going on 28 years, and for me it's not hollow. That's why I became a lawyer, and oftentimes taking these cases on a contingency is not the most profitable thing to do, but this is what I do. And so I wrote a story this summer called The Visitor, and we're doing it here, and we're doing the best we can under these conditions because we can't be live in a studio recording right now, and it's about the Greenwoods, and it's about racial discrimination and perceptions of people of other kinds back in 1965 in Los Angeles, where, well, Sunset Boulevard was happening, the hippie movement was starting, but, you know, a lot of people were still very intolerant, and that's what the story is about. And if you want to read it, at some point I think it will be available, but some of the meaning may unfortunately be lost. It's hard to convey all of the meaning in something like this by what we're doing, but we want to give you some flavors, and we're trying to send you back to 1965. That's something that we're doing, and everything in here is completely historically accurate. It wouldn't be anything other than that if I'm doing it. While the rain beat down on the old roof of the plantation home, the Greenwoods speculated on the location of the big bad intruder.
Well, do you think he can get into the library?
Southern Pine's one of the lightest hardwoods. Wouldn't take much to punch a hole in the old door. Time passed. Amelia tired herself with fright. She even contemplated jumping out of the front window, but it was dark out there. Is the man still there? Tell Amelia to call the police from our telephone.
Can you get Jesus to come? Call your husband and have him pick you up.
She needs to call the police. I can't get through. Hours had passed since the Greenwoods left their spread in Laurel Canyon. The kids were hungry. They alternated between scrounging for food in the galley cabinets and listening attentively from the 12-person galley table built in by somebody big.
Can she go to the kitchen and find out what happened? No, the man must be in the house.
Amelia reported that from the library window she could see the big, dark man outside the front door. Mr. Greenwood resumed his attempt to get through to the Los Angeles Police Department.
Oh, the man won't leave.
What does he want? Why won't he leave? Why would he be there this long?
What's going on at the police? They're so busy responding to the riots, they can't pick up the phone.
In the Watts area, 52 Chevrolet, white in color, containing 4 male Negroes with a sawed-off shotgun. Observed in the looted store area. 4 male Negroes.
In the streets, many hurling rocks and bottles at the police or anyone else, some attacking the cars of people, white or Negro, who just passed by. 15 citizens injured, 19 officers hurt, none seriously, 31 arrested, 12 juveniles.
Go ahead! Go ahead, Clear the sidewalks up ahead. You people enter your home. Please go in your homes. Please go in your homes.
The LAPD finally answered the yacht's mayday call made by telephone. This is Hyman Greenwood. There's been a man on my property for hours scaring our maid half to death. He won't leave, and he's out the door. What's the man doing? He won't leave. Who is this? I said Hyman Greenwood. You're the Negro lawyer. Mr. Greenwood hesitated. You still there? I'm not Negro, but yes, I represent a lot of Negro people. I know who you are. Can you please send the car, my house, a gated property set back hundreds of feet from the street off a really obscure road in the hills? This is very disturbing and I'm out of town. How do you know this is happening? We've been on the phone with Amelia for hours. The man won't leave. What's the man done? He won't leave. He's been there for a long time. Won't stop buzzing the front door. At most, it's trespassing. We don't send cars for trespassing. Oh, this is ridiculous. What if he kills her? What's this man look like? He's over 6 feet. Well, a lot more. She said he's dark. Where's your maid from? Police! Where's that? Mr. Greenwood hesitated. What difference did it make where Mr. Greenwood's maid was from? Are you going to do anything or not? The man's been there for hours and won't leave. Can we get a description? He's dark. Over 6 feet. Is he Negro? I don't know. She said he's dark. Maybe he's one of your clients. He's not. He's harassing her. He might sexually assault her. Police officer went away and talked to somebody else. Well, they need a description of this man if they're going to go there. Tell them he's a big Negro, maybe 7 feet tall. He's got the kind of muscles they use to make steel. She says he's got the biggest feet she's ever seen. He's got big feet too. Mr. Greenwood was not sure where this was going. The police hated him. Most of his practice was defending high-ranking Negro men accused of crimes they were determined not to have committed. Are you there, counselor? My boss says maybe we could send the car. We just need a good description of the big Negro man. Mr. Greenwood didn't want to be part of the game. He couldn't repeat the description. Well, he's really big. He's got the biggest feet she's ever seen. But to tell you the darn honest truth, I don't know if they're the widest feet she's ever seen, or maybe the longest, or if she's been somewhere where they've got them small feet, and I sure don't know a thing about his toes. For all I know, he might have 6 of them, or maybe he's missing a few. The last thing I want to see is another man's toes. You can surely understand that, can't you? It's not like I go around asking men to take off their shoes so I can see their toes. And that's why I can't give you the best description of his toes. How good of a description of his toes do you need anyway, police officer? Is there any way you can stop a crime if you don't know what the criminal's feet look like? Oh, there's one more thing. I think I know about his toes. I mean, it's sort of a generalization, but not even right pigment-wise. Well, I reckon his toes might be dark if he's dark, but they said they're the biggest feet she ever go see. Well, in that case, we'll be right over. Really? Not on account of his feet, but this is, scary, I guess, or maybe she'll like it. Can I talk to your boss? You can. Time passed. The box of saltine crackers in the galley was gone. For that matter, they were down to the Campbell's tomato soup. The only thing left after that was a can of mushroom soup that couldn't be shaken. Hey, is your supervising officer going to get on the line? You can talk to him right now. I mean, not right now, but you can talk to him. Bev, if he's still there, what's happened on the line with Amelia?
Oh, he says he's got a big package for you.
The man just told... the man just told my maid he's got a big package for me. Oh, no, Mr. Greenwood, I'd say he has a big package for your maid. Bev, can you ask him what's in the big package?
Well, he said it's a big pharmacy delivery.
A big pharmacy delivery? Well, this is just crazy. I don't know what is going on here. Half the time I don't with these stories I write. This is Carl Gerber. I'm a real workplace lawyer. This is the Carl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show. We're reenacting a new short story called The Visitor. This is the second segment or second episode of this. Last week we heard the first episode of this, and whenever you're hearing is quite authentic from 1965. So we're coming down to the final act of The Visitor.
See Pasadena General Tire Company at 90 North Santa Anita in Pasadena, or check the yellow pages for your nearest General Tire specialist.
Here's Vic Damone for Coppertone.
Make the most of moments in the sun. Coppertone makes living in the sunshine fun. It gives the fastest tan, as you will quickly see. Cause nothing tans like Coppertone naturally. So don't you be a pale face, get that sun. Get yourself some Coppertone, it's number one. Get the fastest tan that anyone can. Tan, don't burn, get a Coppertone tan.
Oh yes, listeners of Southern California, call in to 877-525-0700. That's my office number, and tell me who the little girl was having her pants pulled down in the Coppertone commercial, if you know. 877-525-0700. Now I remember that ad when I was on the freeway with my parents going between Culver City to see my grandparents in Orange County when we briefly had to live behind the orange curtain in the 70s. And I don't think that advertisement would be considered politically appropriate now. Yes, but I know that the little girl grew up to be a big girl and won a couple Academy Awards, and well, she's politically appropriate. So Carl Gerber, Workplace Lawyer Show, you're listening to. Call me if you have a real workplace discrimination problem at 877-525-0700.
There's a Lucky Supermarket located near you at 1516 Pacific Coast Highway in Redondo Beach and 2510 Pacific Coast Highway in Hermosa Beach there.
Robert W. Morgan.
Since 1993, the Employment Lawyers Group has been a results-oriented law firm whose goal is to get the client what they deserve. They've represented thousands of California employees who've lost their jobs, been sexually harassed, subjected to employment discrimination, or were owed wages on an individualized or group basis, such as a class action. They have a high rate of success. There are few situations involving employment law that they have not confronted. At the forefront of employee rights, they're often the first employee law firm to confront a new legal issue. For an experienced employment lawyer, call 877-525-0700. That's 877-525-0700. They have call takers standing by. Online, read more about the firm at employeelawca.com. They have offices throughout Southern California. Make your work problem theirs to solve.
Well, this is the Carl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show. We're down to the final act of The Visitor, a new short story by no other than Carl Gerber. And, well, we're about ready to start, and I just wanted to say thank you for listening, and I wanted to make sure there was some content during these dark days, and these have been some dark days for all of us. Now, haven't they been? Okay, so as we left off, we found out that it was told to Amelia that, well, the big bad man, he said it was a big pharmacy delivery, and we come back to our story now with Mr. Greenwood saying, "A pharmacy delivery at 10 at night? Officer, this is serious." Okay, who are we looking for? He's a dark man, very large. He's at my door. I gave you my address. It's almost on the valley side of Laurel Canyon. Bring light. It gets dark down there. Well, the man's a Negro, right? We've been through this a couple of times. Well, since he's a scary Negro, we'll go there. Mr. Greenwood shook his head in disapproval. The swaying caused the brim of his captain hat to run a collision course into the microphone through which he talked. His head juggled inside the tightness of the cap until it no longer fit. Thump, thump onto the microphone, and then he lost it. "Don't go there because he's a scary Negro." Do you want us to check up on your mansion and your maid or not? I mean, we're on high alert, but if he's some big, scary, big Negro with big arms and he can bend steel, we'll go and see. Just go! The call ended. Hatless from the helm, he waved his arms back and forth and repeated most of the LAPD dialogue. "Them all a bunch of Southerners!" The children were eating and slurping the soup in the galley. It was no secret that Mr. Greenwood was from Louisiana, but his family, well, the one he was with, they never suspected that he had a descendant somewhere back there who was Creole. Mrs. Greenwood used her car phone to reconnect with Amelia. Amelia's husband had a name, and it wasn't Jesus. The two were married before Shelley was born. The Greenwoods were at their wedding. In fact, the wedding was in their garden. Mrs. Greenwood only called him Jefferson when she wanted to make fun of the fact Amelia was married. "Jefferson's there? I want to talk to him. I'm hearing a lot of background noise here. I just want to talk to Jefferson." "Well, let me talk to Harmy." Mrs. Greenwood gladly surrendered the phone. Mr. Greenwood gave an opening argument on the going-ons of the last few hours, reminding Jaime the facts he lifted off were the accounts he heard through his wife. Well, Jaime asked him if the account was hearsay.
"She's too shaken up, sir. She'll have to go."
Well, no. Well, can you do us a favor and make sure all the doors are locked and before she goes, Jaime, does she know how to lock the doors? They're all mortise locks. You gotta put your finger inside of the door and make sure the right button's pressed in. The conversation about how to lock the doors went on a good 30 minutes, and it isn't worth repeating. By the end of the conversation, it was unlikely that any of the doors would be locked. The conversation might have gone on until midnight, but the police showed up. At that point, Amelia had the phone because Jaime was in handcuffs. For a good while, Mr. Greenwood pleaded for the phone. After reporting Jaime was now inside the squad car, Mrs. Greenwood surrendered the phone. "Can you put the police on the phone, Amelia?" She was past the point of hysteria. Her cries were so loud there was no chance she could hear, let alone comprehend anything Mr. Greenwood said. This went on for a long time. Mr. Greenwood went back to the phone at the helm and called the LAPD. While waiting for an officer to join the line, Mrs. Greenwood announced that Jaime was released from custody. Jaime came to the phone. Breath ran quickly through his soul.
"Sir, Mr. Greenwood, I'm here now."
"Well, did they arrest the intruder?"
"I think they were going to arrest me."
"Oh, they did? You're on the phone inside the house."
"They set me free for now."
No, are the police still there? Can I talk to them? Where's the big man?" Jaime said that he left when Jaime came. And Jaime was a wiry 19-year-old with a general dumbfounded look on his face. He wore mandarin shorts, black cads, and a white t-shirt. At present, his t-shirt was wet from fear and dirtied by the police. "What? He's gone? You saw him?" Jaime? Jaime, are you there? Jaime, what did he say? What did he say? He said he had a package for me. Did he serve papers? Jaime, what did he say?
He said he had a big delivery from the pharmacy.
Well, I don't believe that. But the crashing noise in the kitchen, didn't he break in? Jaime?
We're not too sure what that was.
Well, is there a big box outside?
I don't know. Do you want me to go look?
All of the Greenwoods in the yacht yelled, "Yes!" Mrs. Greenwood told Amelia to stay with her on the phone until Jaime came back inside, on the off chance that the big, scary man still lurked inside the house. Or maybe he waited in the bushes to nab Jaime. The rain had stopped in the small boat harbor. Jaime came back on the line.
There's a box. Do you want me to open it?
Yes! Mrs. Greenwood explained that the entire family had been listening to the phone call for the last 4 or 5 hours and was very concerned about Amelia. There was not another explanation she could give for the fact the entire family had heard the going-ons at their home since they were back in the San Fernando Valley.
There's some medicine in the box.
Medicine? What medicine? I didn't order any medicine! Medicine's in the pharmacy!
Yes! That was very odd.
Well, Jaime, is it a big box there?
It's a pretty huge, ginormous big box.
Oh.
She's asking if she can leave now. She said the man was asking her personal questions. She's too shaken up to work.
Of course she can leave. It's after midnight. I should have said that like a Yankee, but I tell you, I'm not a Yankee. The Greenwoods recounted the events until one by one, wearing the clothes they left in, they fell asleep sitting up on the yacht's orange galley seating. This has been The Visitor, a riveting story set in 1965 Los Angeles about perceptions and racism and the fact that there were a lot of not-so-white people out there back then who were still a bunch of racists. Well, it's a good thing the world is starting to change, and I certainly hope it continues to change. I have certainly noticed in the last 3.5 years an uptick on those calls coming in for race discrimination cases, and, I'd just be quite happy if I never got another one again, because none of that stuff happened. And so we're 55 years later, and well, the same thing happened again here in Los Angeles, and maybe this time something will come out of all this. That's what we're all hoping. And I also just kind of want to digress for a minute and talk a little bit about what's going on. As you know, the show has been on a hiatus that was only supposed to be until June. Unfortunately, I decided that trying to produce, direct, write, and act, if I can do a thing like that, in a show was virtually impossible and a poor choice for everyone's health if that was going to be done during the coronavirus. Unfortunately, radio listenership is way up. KBC's listenership has more than doubled since it was last summer. But the opportunity still exists to go to one of 2 FM stations, and I plan on doing that if at all possible for the show in September. The show will be continued to be broadcast on this channel. You should go here for updates, and we will release to you exciting fiction if more is written this summer, and other shows that may be of interest to you to keep the whole series going. I know that some of the characters, Remus Helms in particular, reached out to me wondering what the hell is going on, why has this not been happening in so long, and well, you know, it's just about time to do something. But this show tonight had 28 separate sound effects, and I ran the soundboard myself, and it took a long time for my assistant to download the sounds, and it took a long time for the story you heard tonight is a little different than the normal radio scripts we did because it was written as fiction. It's a little over 7,000 words. Our scripts in the show are usually 5,800, but when you write literature, it takes a very long time, and the story is partially based upon events that actually happened to me during this protest times here this summer, and some events that happened in my neck of the woods. So you know, a lot of times something happens to you in life and you make a story out of it, and if you're a writer, you just can't help yourself but doing a thing like that. And that's why we have some good content sometimes on this show, and obviously writing these on a weekly basis is very difficult, but we did that for 2 years, and we're going to be starting again. But I think the show is probably going to be a half an hour format opposed to a 1 hour, and there are going to be more people listening in half an hour than used to listen in an hour. So we'll just have to see how that goes. Stay tuned, stay safe, hopefully nobody gets sick. These are some bad times, and reflect upon what you've heard, and if you want a written version of the story, I might be able to give it to you if you don't see it published in some short story anthology. It can take about a year for a short story to get published. They're not as many journals as there used to be that publish short stories, and the new thing is they have reading fees, which I, of course, will not pay as a real writer, and so that produces a dilemma because most short story journals require a $3 to more reading fee, which just doesn't seem right because the old rule is never pay to be published, and they say they do that to detract people, but people still are sending in. And so I hope that literature and short story writing continues, and we may have a project where we do our own short story journal, and maybe some of those would be enacted on the Carl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show if they were appropriate. So stay tuned. We'll be back, and it's been good. Remember, I'm Carl Gerber. I'm a real workplace lawyer, a discrimination lawyer, a Los Angeles historian. Everything you heard tonight is historically accurate.
Here I am, here I'll stay.
Since 1993, the Employment Lawyers Group has been a results-oriented law firm whose goal is to get the client what they deserve. They've represented thousands of California employees who've lost their jobs, been sexually harassed, subjected to employment discrimination, or were owed wages on an individualized or group basis, such as a class action. They have a high rate of success. There are few situations involving employment law that they have not confronted. At the forefront of employee rights, they're often the first employee law firm to confront a new legal issue. For an experienced employment lawyer, call 877-525-0700. That's 877-525-0700. They have call takers standing by. Online, read more about the firm at employeelawca.com. They have offices throughout Southern California. Make your work problem theirs to solve.
This has been the Carl Gerber Workplace Lawyer Show, broadcast from Los Angeles, California, featuring a first-time radio voice actor who has appeared on radio before and may be appearing in the exciting new episode of Craftopia.